to
Yeah.
use it. And then you start thinking like, oh man, I could turn the hundreds of hours that I spend in meetings into a cash machine.
Mhm.
That's pretty cool, especially
Yeah.
like over the duration of your week, of your month, of your year. It's I think people will do it for like I don't think it's the money that they're doing it for. I think it's the fact that
Hello, and welcome back to In the Future. This is Max and myself ready to do something a little different this time. We're going to do an idea time once again. We haven't done one in a couple episodes. So Max has an idea in the back of his head about all he told me was this: paid virtual backgrounds. Paid virtual backgrounds. So I don't really know what he's thinking. So Max, I'm going to let you go ahead and take it and describe what you're thinking, and I'll give you my reaction, and maybe we can start exploring that idea.
ooh, so exciting. Okay, so first let's frame up for people who don't know what idea time is.
Yeah.
So on this podcast, in the future, we talk about trends, things that we predict or forecast are going to happen in 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 down the line. And we always try to look for opportunities that you can kind of layer on top of those predictions, right? On top of those forecasts.
Mhm.
And idea time is an evolution of that. We've done, for anybody who wants to check out, I think we did 3 of these in the past. We shared some ideas, we put them out there. The hope is that people can just take the idea, build on it, run with it. If you want to give us, a little shout out in the future when it becomes a multi-billion-dollar idea, we won't stand in your way.
Please do. Yeah.
We beg you. But yeah, let's do it. Idea time. So, how did you frame it up? What was the?
Well, all I said was that the only words you said to me are paid virtual backgrounds, and that was
I like
the
that.
big mystery to me. Yeah,
I like that. That's pretty interesting because in a way it captures it very well. So let me ask you this question, Spence. How much time do you spend per week at work in meetings, virtual meetings?
Yeah. In virtual meetings, I'm probably at a minimum at least 15 to 20 hours. Yeah,
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of time. Yeah.
That's like half of your work week.
Yeah, I mean, I've got 40 hours. Let's say it's at least it's less than a third, probably a little less than a quarter.
And then if you add do you have physical, like face-to-face meetings as well?
Sometimes, yeah, I'll fly in.
So you even add it on top of that.
Yeah, going to the office, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say about 20 hours. I think what you're describing is more or less average, right? For people who kind of attend these meetings, especially with people working remotely. Virtual meetings are all the rage, right? And they're just going to continue to increase. And so it forced me to ask the question, like we all spend a lot of time in these meetings. What if you can get paid on top of, whatever your salary is to monetize those meetings with your background, right? And that's kind of where it comes in.
Can I go ahead and take a stab at what you're saying here? Because
hell yeah, go ahead.
Okay, because you haven't given me all the details at all, but you're the way you're framing it up is making me think here. Is your hypothesis basically is start to leverage your virtual background as some sort of advertising canvas so that the other people in your meetings show? It's almost, if I think about it, it's almost like when people wear name brands on their shirts. Mm-hmm. I guess it could be multiple brands in this case, rather than like a Gucci on their shirt or whatever brand. It could be, I don't know, let's say like a yoga company. Lululemon came to mind for some reason. Is that more or less kind of what the idea is?
I would say more. Yeah, exactly. Okay. And like the difference between wearing it on a t-shirt and on a t-shirt, you can't really monetize it, right? How can, let's say, Lululemon track that you're wearing that unless you're an influencer and you're posting about it and they pay you kind of for the post. Right. But with all of the time that you spend, like if you go into Zoom, because I think during like 2020, 2021, they were one of the first to actually like really inject a lot of custom backgrounds that you can activate. You could upload an image like for like May the 4th be with you. A lot of people did the Star Wars themes and things like that in the background. Mm-hmm. But look at where you are in this video. Look at and me. Look at all the space that's around us.
Yeah.
If you just take the thin stripe and the perimeter, that it could be like a little ticker thing, almost like a running video, or it could be static if you want to keep it simple. And you can like go from just the thin perimeter all the way to as much space as you have. And now all you really need to connect to that is a brand that can track the fact that you're in those meetings and allow you to kind of monetize it. And it could be a small brand like a neighborhood yoga studio, or it could be something huge like a giant conglomerate like Lululemon, right, or Peloton, or Coca Cola, or even a sports team that you're proud of, like any of those things.
Yeah.
I'll pause there for a second. What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, it makes total sense. I'm thinking, so from a business perspective, like removing the technology off of it. I mean, who it feels like a win-win so far. Like as the user going into these meetings, if I can just monetize, make a couple of dollars, I would imagine it's not too much money. It's not like a whole lot of money, but it's
I would think fractions of a penny,
that
but
makes sense. That makes it almost like streaming level type of
yeah,
fraction of a penny. You know, maybe if you have it on a call, you're making maybe a 2 hour call is like 50 cents, maybe. Or no, you said
average meetings are 30 to 60 minutes, or 30. I don't even think people do 45 minutes, but like 30 to 60, right?
30 to 60. Yeah. Let's say you're making like, all right, half a penny. I said 50 cents. Yeah. Half a penny. Yeah. So, I mean, so you're not making a ton of money, but it's very passive, right? So it's not, there's not a whole lot to it unless you really have some self branding where you're like, I don't want to be associated with the, advertising and stuff like that. It's fairly cheap, I guess, for the advertiser. Now, what I'm wondering is, and I'm not gonna stop me if I go too much into the weaves or into the rabbit hole, but I'm wondering, like, from like the business perspective, if I want to advertise in this format, is it like, will Google have a platform, or do I go to your company, let's say where you work, and I say, hey, I'm Lululemon. Let's just stick with them because we already mentioned them. I want to advertise with all your employees and offer you guys an exclusive. I don't know if you want me to say where you work, but let's just say your employer name, um, your employer name, X Lululemon backgrounds exclusively just for you guys, right? That's like, it might get people excited to use it. Like, oh my God, these are so exclusive and cool to us, and we can it's something new. There's something novel to it. But then, what I'm wondering here is, how will I track, like, I guess I don't think there's even tracking involved. I think it's like, if I go to your company, I sell you these exclusive wallpapers that promote our product. Am I paying the employer, or am I paying the individuals? And the employer is the one that's responsible for paying paying the individual employees on their paychecks. Like, is it a separate pay stream, or is it just like, oh, my paycheck's just a little bit bigger now because
Interesting.
like, how does that work? Is it because
Yeah.
I don't think it's a direct relationship as far as I know.
Yeah. So let me answer that question second. First, I just want to say, from a business perspective, there's two really interesting things. Number one, and like why this form of advertising is effective.
Yeah.
Number one, it's the duration, right? 30 to 60 minutes you're not just flying or zooming past a billboard at 50 miles an hour and you get to see it like that, and you can't really track a billboard, or you're watching a TV commercial, like things like that, or you're seeing an ad online, right? Like, these are all different units of measurements with different pay rates per view,
Yeah.
or per click, or per acquisition, however you grade it. Number two, though, what's really cool about it is the fact that it's a captive audience. They're there. They are looking at you, and they're seeing that ad, and you can't not see it, right? Like, people can have their video off and then it's not effective.
Yeah.
You could be in a giant room and you're a small thumbnail and it's not as effective.
Mhm.
But still, though, in most of those meetings where it's like, let's say, under 10 people, it is a captive audience, all eyes on you.
Mhm.
And now the question really does become of, okay, how do you, as an advertiser or as a company, as a brand, track this and charge this? I would absolutely avoid the route of selling this to employers. I think that this puts the power in the employee, in the individual's hands, to say, hey, I'm going to be, it's almost like, not an FU to the employer, but like, if you're going to force me, I imagine this is how people are going to think. Some people, if you're going to force me to be in all these meetings every single week, I'm going to monetize it. I'm going to make some money off of it, in addition to like whatever paycheck it is.
Mhm.
And if you add on top of that, and so I think that the process would be, we, as let's say we create this, we have this platform, and the advertisers come to us and they say, hey, I'm Lululemon, I'm Coca-Cola, I'm a sports team, for example,
Right.
and I want to pay per eyeball, per minute,
Mhm.
X pennies or X dollars, whatever it is, or maybe it's for the month, right? And then all the individuals, like everybody that works with you, everybody that works with me, can go on this platform and say, this is cool. Here's my potential of what I can earn. Let's say it's like $10 a month.
Oh, so we're going in this scenario. We're going around the employer.
Yeah, I wouldn't involve the employer. Like, what incentive did they have? And also they're like, oh, we don't want to rep this brand. We don't want to like stand behind this brand.
Middleman. Well, well, sorry, and I want to get back on track. I don't want you to lose. Well, there's two reasons why they may be incentivized, and this is kind of like if they want to get greedy, they can scrape off the top of that. Just scrape the very top of that monetization, just a little bit, right? Just like the 10% or the 1% off each employee that uses the actual wallpaper. But maybe not. I agree with you. The only other reason why I would think the employer might get involved is providing guidelines or having control over like the governance of like what kind of wallpaper can you have. Like you can't do, not that
Yeah.
obviously not tobacco. Maybe that's like an extreme example, but maybe it's like a competitor of the company. You can't have that. If we work at Pepsi, you can't have a Sprite background. That's
Yeah.
the only other reason why, unless they can manage that within their own kind of HR and say, hey, look, you guys can monetize your wallpaper and everything, but if we're going to penalize you if you're using.
I would go that route. I think just like a simple email with guidelines. Say like, oh, we've noticed. Like, I imagine this email comes out from
Yeah,
corporate. Hey, we've seen a couple of you experimenting with this new platform called blah blah blah, and adding virtual backgrounds into your meetings. We love individuality. We want you to bring yourself to work, and it's interesting that you guys are earning money off of this, but please avoid using these types of advertisements.
yeah,
Like
these categories, right?
and
Gambling,
yeah, exactly, and I think that takes care of most of those things, and it keeps just like it's the relationship with the individual and the brand. It's really just like you become a micro influencer in a way, and you layer on top of it this like captive audience. Like unlike on Instagram where you can just kind of like swipe off of it, you're
yeah,
there. That's
yeah,
that's like I keep reiterating this because that's such a powerful medium for advertising that hasn't really been tapped that I could think of
yeah,
in a credible way yet. I
yeah,
do think that this will come out, and I do think that people are going to start using this. Like, no matter what a virtual meeting looks like, whether it's you and I talking via computer or with a virtual headset,
yeah.
all of these things are going to stick, and it's going to stick around for a while.
I agree. So here's a devil's advocate question. Let's roll
Love
with
it.
it for a second. I am new to this. I'm somebody who's been in the workforce for a long time, and maybe I'm like C level. I'm a little dry, and my personality. I've worked in the '80s, and I go to you and I go, you're pitching me this idea, right? Or like just in general, and I go, yeah, but you know what, like. Somebody at my level or many people level, like, don't you think it comes off a little unprofessional if I've got an advertising background for like bubblegum or we're talking serious topics, like how
Mhm.
would you respond to that?
Just don't do it. You're not the audience, really.
That's
I would say this is not for the C-suite.
okay.
I think you're correct in bringing up that point. This is not for the C-suite. This is really not for professional
Like,
meetings.
yeah, like,
The equivalent I would give today, like in terms of like guidelines of how I think people approach this. We've talked about this before. Like in my meetings, there's quite a few people now that are doing the virtual avatar, right?
yeah, yeah,
That person is probably not gonna, like disguising their face as like an alien. That person's probably not gonna do that in a executive meeting, or if that
yeah,
person's higher up and it's a serious meeting, they're not gonna do that. Same mentality here. It's really like it's the setting needs to match whatever it is that you're advertising. But I think that it's gonna be hard to get the advertisers to come on board. Like there has to be a snowball
yeah.
effect, right? So I would definitely start this off with just like how do you personalize it for the individual? Is it a sports team? Is it blah 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 and this and that?
That's an easy one, by the way. That's a low hanging fruit. The sports.
Exactly. It's just adding an image.
Yeah, and you kind of on that topic. One of the things that'll probably be important for this platform that's providing this is to do them very tastefully as well. Like not in the banner ad, like they should look cool. Like that, like people should look at that and be like, "Oh wow, that's really cool." Like content, almost like content marketing that's being done in Instagram, like in the sense of
Yeah.
like, not like a random ad where it's just like, "Ha, like buy this thing." It's like somebody saying, there's a little story behind it. The equivalent of that in an image, like there's maybe it's like 3D graphics and it's impressive, right? They have to be, I think, somewhat impressive versus just being kind of like a flat static image. So I think there needs to be I think there needs to be a little bit of love put into them. The
Sure.
reason I'm saying that is at the beginning, especially, it's just to increase adoption. Because like as a user, yeah, I'm going to monetize it, but also like I want other people to be like, dude, where'd you get that? That's cool.
Exactly. You nailed it. So it's funny you said that. I have a question answer here. So it says, how does this grow? And it says the answer is psychologically, it's interesting to notice when you have a new background. What?
Yeah.
I needed to add
Pull it
some
out.
commas in there, but psychologically, it's interesting to notice when you have a new background, people organically ask where you got it from and how they can find their own. So this will help the growth organically. It is that. It
100%.
is that. Oh, those are cool shoes, man. Or that's a nice bag. Where'd you get that?
Yeah, where'd you get
Um,
that? So I can use
yeah,
it in another meeting, like where people
yeah.
haven't
And it's
seen it.
like, and then when you add on top of it, it's like a surprise and delight. Even on top of that, it's like, oh, I downloaded it from this platform, and I also get paid to
Yeah.
use it. And then you start thinking like, oh man, I could turn the hundreds of hours that I spend in meetings into a cash machine.
Mhm.
That's pretty cool, especially
Yeah.
like over the duration of your week, of your month, of your year. It's I think people will do it for like I don't think it's the money that they're doing it for. I think it's the fact that like money is nice, but I've seen other examples where you could like I remember when I was in college, there was some app where you can answer like very quick questions, kind of like before Quora came around, and you got paid like fractions of a penny, and it was more effort to answer that question, but it was just nice to share something that's in your mind and kind of like help someone else. I
Yeah.
think I think it's not really the money that drives people. I think it's like individuality, it's self representation, it's really just if you could become a micro influencer on this and actually earn, just like YouTube, I think like a 1% of the people make real
Yeah.
money. That's very possible.
Yeah. I think
And then most
I think the naysayers are going to say, I think one of the things that and I'm trying to just poke holes. The naysayers are going to be like, well, the ecosystem is limited. It's like, okay, Max has meetings. Yeah, sure, Max has meetings 20 hours a week, but then he's always cycling through like maximum. There's like 50 different people we're advertising to. It's not thousands of people. But to your point, now, as I'm thinking about this as I'm saying it, it multiplies, right? Because maybe Max has meetings with 50 people, but then Max's coworker in one of those meetings has meetings as well with 50 other people, including Max, but also the Venn diagram, there's people that Max doesn't have meetings with. So like really the company that these people work with become like your marketable, your potential market, basically. Like at your company, I may have the possibility of marketing to 200 people. At another company, it might be like 80,000 people. At another company, it could be just 30
people.
people. So I guess that might also determine the value of what you get paid too, right? Like I don't think it would be flat amongst everybody, right? Like if I'm in a small startup with 3 people, like is it worth paying me the same as somebody who's in a giant company with
For
80,000
sure.
people?
Yeah. Yeah. But I agree with you. What's cool about it though is unlike a billboard where you have like a physical billboard where you pay, $500 and it's there for the month,
Yeah, yeah.
regardless of who interacts with it. Here, I guess one way to monetize it is I pay you as a micro influencer per month a flat fee. Um, but well, I guess it's sort of similar in that sense. So never mind on that part. I think the monetization, they're like this. I think that there's a lot of ways to monetize ads. There's a lot of different ad placements. Um, I'm not the expert on that particular thing. I think people can solve that and they can experiment with what
Yeah.
works. I also think brands will come in with their own point of view of like, here's what I'm willing to pay for, here's what I'm not. And whether you go, to big companies or like the small and medium sized businesses to advertise, or the like small local yoga studio,
Mhm.
all very different in approaches. What I do like about it is the fact that you can distribute it to all of these channels, which is like think Zoom, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, Cisco's WebEx, Skype, right? Like all of those things that they can all pull their ads from the same platform. Like maybe
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe you I don't even know how you would do it. Like you would like the tracking question is really the one that's still stuck in my mind. Like, do we ask someone to come in every time and go, "Hey, I'm activating it"? Do we
Yeah.
just take your word for it, or is there a more intelligent way? Is it like a Google Analytics thing gets added to the meeting? Right. I think the technical aspect needs to be figured out, but the idea is really I
Yeah.
like.
No, yeah, and that got me thinking as well that I'm gonna pause for a second. All right, yeah, that gets me thinking about like, okay, so that as a third party now from like a business model, it seems like it's a number one. I'll start with this. Number one, it seems pretty low cost. For me, generally for like a company that the deliverable is just these backgrounds and connecting these advertisers to people who want to download these backgrounds, right? Like it doesn't seem incredibly high tech. So it's not going to take millions of dollars, I think, to start it up, multi millions of dollars. The other thing is like, I guess what is the business model from? I guess the platform gets paid from the advertisers, or is it a percentage of the revenue that they're paying the individuals? Like, is that would it be a percentage base? Like, for example, if we have this platform, let's call it, funky wallpapers, and we have Nike putting their wallpapers, and we see that 100 people use the wallpaper on their meetings, and overall the revenue, without taking anything off, the revenue is $100 for the month. Do we go ahead, as the platform, do we scrape off just like a percentage of that? Like,
You could. It's
like
an
okay,
option.
it's like you got to pay. Yeah, it's like, oh, you're gonna pay. You're gonna, yeah, the collective. Sorry, because I'm thinking it backwards. The collective revenue, the revenue that people are making, because really the advertisers are not making revenue from that. They collectively make 100 in that month. I would imagine the business model then is like, okay, we got to pay out percentage of that somehow. Like, we wouldn't
Maybe.
flat fee. I don't think it would be a flat fee, right? Like, oh, you want to put us on the platform, pay us like for the month, pay us like, I don't know, 10K.
I think what we're talking about here is just like it's the maturity of the business, right? Like I think you could start off on one end, and then it kind of just keeps going, and the model maybe shifts. Um, I also it's also while you were saying that, I was also thinking like, well, how did the individuals get paid? Because this feels to me like whenever fractions of a penny are involved, it always seems to me that there's a minimum to cash out. Like, oh, you need $50 to cash out, which is, and it's like a built-in incentive to kind of keep doing it. So like I guess those are the good questions. It's like, how do the users get paid? How much do they get paid? The tracking is the biggest question
The
that I
tracking.
think that I think whoever builds this would need to solve. Um, I think there's a good argument for it should be individual, and not have the employer involved. Um,
That's what makes the tracking a little tough, though.
well, the employer is not the owner of Zoom, right? So they're not really connected in any way to it. It's
No,
almost like how do you build this into it's like you need to work with Zoom in order to get it built
there
in.
might have to be a partnership. Yeah, but also that might violate some sort of like, I don't know. Again, I know we're going into the weeds here, like,
Yeah.
but it's like that might violate some sort of like compliance. Like, oh, like imagine, I don't know, Salesforce finds out that Zoom has been tracking for this platform. Like, you're telling another company how many people are in our meetings. That's sketchy. Like, why are you doing that? Can we trust you? Like, what else are you tracking? So I wonder, but I also wonder if it's like a self-logged thing. I know that sounds very low tech, but like if I'm in a,
That's what I was thinking as well. Yeah, that like you literally self log meaning, if I could just guess, self log meaning you go in and say, hey, I work in a company of this size. I attend X number of meetings per week. Here's how
yeah,
many people on average are in it. Take my word for it, and then
take
we'll
my word
see
for it. Yeah,
like is the background like one interesting thing that we really didn't talk about was um, how can people action on the ad, right? Is it just brand visibility? Like, is it just a Nike logo,
I think that's
or is it the latest like Skechers or like Nike shoe drop, right? And here's the code that you have to enter at, like you
that,
get your own individual code
that
as a,
might be it.
yeah,
That might be
and,
it. I think
and
it's
then you go and you get it into the cart.
because a link is too complicated.
A
Like
link in
that's
an image is very tough, but I do
this.
think that like a QR code, you could scan that. That's an easy one, right?
Oh, I think that's the one. I think it's a QR code.
And that's easy to generate for yourself.
And how happy do you get when you get on a call and you see
Yeah.
and you're talking while you're talking? First of all, you're like, yeah, so yeah, we're gonna go ahead and solve all the problems of the world with scalability. Oh, I see you like what I'm showing you, huh?
That's actually pretty interesting. I dig that.
Yeah,
But again, like there's like any business. Like what I really like about Idea Time is it kind of puts into question the popular saying of ideas are a dime a dozen.
mm-hmm.
I don't believe that that's true. I think that there is like real value in ideas.
Yeah,
Execution obviously needs to happen, and there's a lot more risk in execution.
yeah.
But I am putting this to the test. Like I'm working on something on the side as well. But I think that idea democratization, just like putting ideas out there and letting people bring them to life and like inject their own kind of points of views on it. I think that there's merit to both. I think that the makers don't necessarily need to be the idea thinkers. I think those could be two
Two
separate
separate
people.
things.
And there's value, and there's massive value to both. So like I'd be very curious to see what people think about this idea. How else can they add it? Can they answer or add to it? Can they answer any of the gaps and questions that we posed during this interview? And please, someone go out and build this thing so that we can do this during our own meetings
Yeah,
and get paid for it.
definitely. Yeah, let's. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, regardless of what Max says, like I want a piece of that. So please pay me 10% for each idea.
Then I'll take my piece from your piece.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, we're kidding. But yeah, you should absolutely go ahead and if you feel like this is a good idea, go out there and build it. That's the most important thing. Bring it to
That's the
life.
pod. Wrap it here.
Bye. Bye, guys.
Awesome.
Bye.
Good stuff.